Good morning. This is Muhammad Suleiman, Assistant Professor of Commerce, working at MES Government Degree College, Autonomous, Mehboob Nagar. Today, let us learn about remedies for breach of contract. As all of us know, that a contract is an agreement which is enforceable at law, and the parties to the contract are supposed to perform their obligations. But sometimes it may happen that the parties to the contract may not fulfill the obligations that are there on them or may refuse to do so. In such a case, there is breach of contract. Then we have a question: do we have some remedy in case of such situation? So today our topic is on that. That is remedies for a breach of contract. What type of remedies that the aggrieved party has? So this is the plan of the lesson. That is objectives of the lesson. We will be seeing introduction to the breach of contract. Then we will be seeing remedies for breach of contract. Then we will be seeing different types of remedies that are available to the aggrieved party. That is cancellation, restitution, specific performance, injunction, quantum merit, and damages. We will be learning all these things by the end of this lecture. So as all of us know that the contract will give rights and obligations on the parties to the contract. When the contract is entered, it is clear on the part of both the parties or on the part of all the parties that they get some rights after entering into the contract, and they have some obligations which they are supposed to fulfill or perform. So in this case, everybody is bound to complete their performance or discharge their responsibilities or fulfill their obligations that are there as per the lawful contract that has been made. But sometimes it happens that one of the parties or some of the parties repudiates the contract by refusing to perform their obligations. In such a case, he or she is said to have committed a breach of the contract. Then in such a case, in case of a breach of the contract, somebody is aggrieved. And in case of breach of a contract, the law provides certain remedies to the injured party. Not in every contract the injury that has occurred due to breach of contract is serious, but in most of the cases or in many cases it is observed that when the quantum of performance is more or when the obligation to be fulfilled is high, the injured party suffers a great loss in case of breach of the contract. Therefore, it becomes important and relevant for us to learn various remedies that are available for the breach of contract. Now, let us see what are the different remedies that are available in case of a breach of a contract. The law provides the following remedies in case of breach of a contract. We have cancellation, we have restitution, specific performance is one of the remedies available, then we have injunction, then quantum merit, and damages. So all these types of remedies are available to the aggrieved party, and the party can take one of them as a remedy to make good the loss that he has suffered due to the breach of the contract. Now let us see the first remedy that is available in case of breach of a contract. The first remedy that is available in case of breach of a contract is cancellation or rescission. It is sometimes called as rescission and sometimes called as cancellation. So it is nothing but it is the revocation of the contract. It is the way by which a contract may be discharged or completed when one of the parties commit breach, the other party may treat the contract as rescinded. Therefore, rescission is understood as revocation of the contract, and Section 64 of Indian Contract Act allows rescinding a voidable contract if the party is aggrieved due to the action taken or due to the task that has been chosen by one of the parties. Therefore, when the contract is rescinded, he is freed from all obligations under the contract. He need not perform the further obligations of the contract, and any benefit that is received before the cancellation or rescission of the contract, that has to be restored, that has to be given back to the party from whom it has been or it was received. For example, if an agreement was made for the purchase of bike, if some advance is given, let us say rupees 10,000 rupees advance is given, and the agreed value is 50,000 rupees, and 40,000 due was supposed to be given on the date of handing over of the bike. On the date of handing over of the bike, the other party refused to do so. Then in such a case, the first party can revoke the contract because the other party committed a breach and he has refused to perform his obligation. And it is important to note that the amount which has been given as advance, rupees 10,000, is to be collected back. And further, under Section 75 of Indian Contract Act, a person who rightfully rescinds the contract is entitled to get some compensation also for the damage that he has suffered due to non-fulfillment of the contract. In some cases, it happens not only the amount which was given as advance, but also some compensation due to the suffering, due to the injury that he has faced due to non-fulfillment of obligations or breach of the contract. Let us take one example wherein a person in a town made an agreement with a famous singer to arrange musical show, and the singer agreed to come for consecutive 7 days for 1 week. For this reason, the organizer sold tickets for all the 7 days and took one convention hall on rent for the purpose of organizing the musical show, and he agreed to pay honorarium to the singer when he comes for 7 days for the show. Now, after 2 days, third day onwards, the singer did not turn up, let us assume. In this case, the organizer who has sold the tickets to the public will face a criticism, comments from the public on being failure to arrange the musical show, which is not in his hands. If singer does not turn up from third day onwards, let us assume he came for 2 days and from third day onwards he did not turn up, then in such a case the organizer will face all difficulties and he is the injured party. In such a case, the organizer may demand not only the refund of the advance given to the singer, but also the compensation for the damage that he has faced due to the failure of the show. In such a case, the organizer may also claim for compensation from the singer. Therefore, cancellation is nothing but revocation of the contract, and it is the way by which a contract may be discharged. But it is important to learn when a cancellation is granted and when a cancellation is not granted or refused by the court of law. It may happen that in some cases it is possible that granting of rescission is okay according to the law, but in some cases it may happen that granting of rescission may be refused by the court of law also. Now let us see one or two conditions in which the grant of rescission is possible according to the law. Under section 27 of 1 of the Specific Relief Act, the court may grant a rescission in the following two cases: where the contract is voidable at the option of the plaintiff and the court grants the rescission. Here there is no problem. According to the option of the plaintiff, the contract is voidable, therefore the court grants rescission. Then in second case, where the contract is unlawful for causes not apparent on its face and the defendant is more to blame than plaintiff, therefore the court may grant a rescission. Here the crux is the contract is unlawful. When the contract is unlawful, the court may grant rescission. So it is not possible to grant rescission in all possible cases, but wherever required and wherever the court assumes there is importance of granting rescission of the contract, the court will grant the rescission of the contract. And in some cases, granting rescission of the contract may be refused by the court also due to some reasons. So therefore the court may however refuse to rescind the contract where the plaintiff has ratified the contract, either expressly or impliedly. When he ratifies the contract, there is no question of granting rescission. And second one, when the parties cannot be restored to their original positions, where the owing circumstances or changed circumstances will make the parties not to restore to their original position, then rescission may be refused. Then in third case, where third parties during the subsistence of the contract acquired rights in good faith and for value. It is nothing but the involvement of third parties. When third parties are involved and have acquired rights in the good faith, then the rescission may be refused. Then we have one more reason where rescission may be refused, where only a part of the contract is sought to be rescinded but not the full contract. Some part of the contract is assumed to be good and some part of the contract is not assumed to be good. Then in such a case, the rescission may not be granted. Therefore, grant of rescission is at the discretion of the court according to the law and various sections that are involved in it. Hence, we learn that rescission or cancellation is one of the remedies available in case of breach of a contract. Now, having learned the rescission, let us see what is restitution. Restitution is another remedy available in case of breach of a contract. Restitution is nothing but a return of benefit received by one party to the contract from the other under a void contract. It means return of benefit received by one party to the contract from another party and the contract which has been declared a void contract. When a contract becomes void, it need not be performed by either party. It is clear and understood also. When a contract becomes void, it need not be performed by either party. Therefore, section 65 provides that when an agreement is discovered to be void or when a contract becomes void, any person who has received any advantage or benefit under such agreement or contract is bound to restore or make compensation for it to the person from whom he has received it. For example, a contract is void and 50,000 rupees advance is taken for the contract. When it is decided that the contract is void, the advance of rupees 50,000 is to be given back. This is called a restitution. And this section applies to contracts discovered to be void, but it does not apply to contracts which are known to be void. This is important point here. If at the time of entering the contract itself, if it is known to all the parties to the contract that the contract which they are going to enter into is void, then this remedy will not apply to it, because they know it pretty well that the contract they are going to make is void. But later on at some stage, if it is discovered that the contract that they have entered into is void, then this section is applicable. Then only this section is applicable and restitution can be demanded, or restitution can be challenged in a court of law. But if the contract is void ab initio, even before entering itself, if it is clear that the contract is void, then the clause or the section of restitution is not applicable. Let us take one example here. If two persons, Mr. X and Y, enter into a contract, and X orders Mr. Y to beat Mr. Z, and he will give rupees 1,000. Now here it is understood that beating Mr. Y by anyone or by Y, or beating Mr. Z by anyone or Mr. Y is against public policy. It is against the doctrine of public policy, because it is going to create some harm or bring some harm to some other person in the society, which is not good and acceptable in the court of law also. Therefore, this contract itself is void. Then in such a case, if a contract that has been entered into is void, then the clause or section of restitution is not applicable. Therefore, restitution is applicable to only those contracts which are discovered to be void, but not to those which are known to be void. And we have one more remedy that is available in case of breach of a contract is specific performance. In some cases, it may happen that the person aggrieved by the breach of the contract may file a suit for specific performance. In case of a specific performance, they may file a suit for specific performance but not for compensation. Under certain circumstances, it is possible that an aggrieved party can demand for only the performance that has been agreed upon. Then they may move to the court to get an order upon the guilty party, directing him to perform what he promised to do, but not any compensation. It may happen in some cases where the compensation is not sufficient, or compensation will not make good the loss that has happened because of the breach of the contract. Therefore, in such cases, what happens is the party will demand for specific performance but not for the compensation. Now let us see how specific performance has become important. There are some rules according to the Specific Relief Act 1877. A court may direct for specific performance in some cases, like where monetary consideration is not adequate remedy for the breach of the contract. The breach of the contract that has happened and the damage that it has done will not be completed or will not be balanced with a compensation given in monetary terms. Then in such a case, the specific performance only is the remedy but not the compensation. And in some cases, it may happen that there exists no standard for ascertaining the actual damage caused by non-performance of the contract. In some situations, it may happen the loss that has occurred, the loss that has been faced by one of the parties to the contract is not in a position to be measured, and the loss that has been suffered is not in a position to be ascertained. Then, in such a case, the court may give an order to the guilty party directing him to perform what he promised to do. Then, in such a case, there is no other option. Specific performance only is the remedy. The party will be given justice by doing specific performance by the guilty party only. Then, in some cases, what happens is the preventive measure or preventive relief could be one of the remedy available for breach of a contract, and that is injunction. So injunction is a preventive relief where an aggrieved party can sue for an injunction, that is an order of the court restraining the wrongdoer from doing or continuing the wrongful act. It may happen in some cases. People go to or approach the court to get some injunction order in order to stop the wrongful activities. Naturally, injunctions are granted to enforce negative stipulations in cases where damages are not adequate relief. Even though the party is ready to pay some compensation or pay for the damages, the other party may not agree for the accepting or taking of compensation or damages, wherein he will demand only for specific performance, and that too as per the agreed terms and conditions. For example, if a builder who constructs buildings has agreed to construct a house for Mr. A and entered into an agreement, later on, after some days, on getting some attractive and beneficial offer from the other party in a different city, the builder may refuse to do so, or the person, the contractor who has agreed, may refuse to do so. Then, in such a case, in order to stop the wrongful act, or in order to stop the wrongdoer, that is the builder, from taking one more project before completing the project that has been already taken, the aggrieved party may go to the court of law asking for an injunction. Then the injunction order may be passed, which is a preventive relief, and it is a particular case wherein the breach is anticipated and the court of law is approached for the purpose of suing a person to get an injunction on him. Once injunction is issued, the wrongdoer will have to stop from doing the wrongful things and have to fulfill the obligations which have been agreed into, and later on, after completing the obligations, he can take up some other work. But before completion of this work, or before completion of the agreed upon work, he cannot go to some other type of works. Therefore, injunction is also one of the important remedies that are available in case of a breach of a contract. Then we have one more remedy, that is called quantum merit. In some cases, it may happen that the work is half complete and half is left over, or the work is complete in some portion and not complete in some other portion. Then, in such a case, it is not a work that is not at all started, or it is not a contract that has been completely discharged. Then, in such a case, quantum merit section is applicable, and the phrase or the word quantum merit means payment in proportion to the amount of work done. It is nothing but payment in proportion to the amount of work done, and a right to sue on quantum merit arises where a contract is partly performed by one party and has become discharged by the breach of the contract by the other party. The party which has started performing the contract has not fulfilled the complete obligations, and have left or has left the contract discharged by a refusal to complete the rest of the work or by a failure to complete the rest of the work, then in such a case it cannot be called a completed contract and it cannot be called a contract which has not at all been started. So there is no possibility of doing novation to this contract. A new contract cannot be entered into because the contract is half or partially complete. Then in such a case, the principle that can be applied here is quantum merit. Quantum merit is a right founded not on the original contract but it is on the discharged contract, and in some cases in case of a void contract. Therefore, the principle of quantum merit will give a right to one person to sue some other party for the payment in proportion of the amount of work done. Therefore, quantum merit is also one of the remedies available in case of a breach of a contract. Then we have one more remedy available in case of breach of a contract, that is damages. Here the term damages in business law means compensation. Compensation in monetary terms and compensation in order to make good the loss, the suffering or the injury that has occurred to the aggrieved party in case of breach of a contract. The damages for breach of contract are intended to compensate the injured party so far as money can do so. Of course, it is agreed or it is known that money cannot make good all the things that have happened or that have been injured, but an attempt can be made in the form of compensation, in the form of giving compensation for the breach of contract, and the intention here is to compensate the injured party so far as money can do, but it is not sure that all that has been lost or all that has been injured will be restored or recovered properly. And it is important to note that the primary purpose of awarding damages is to put the injured person in a good position but not in the right position. Therefore, the term damages means compensation in money as a substitute for the promised performance. Damages for the breach of a contract are mainly intended as a substitute for the promised performance, and the injured party can receive money as compensation in that case. Law of contract normally does not seek to punish the guilty, but if by reason of his wrongful act the other party has suffered any loss, any pecuniary loss, the court will order or compel the party in breach to make good the loss by paying damage to the other party, and its purpose is compensation but not anything else. Because when the contract is not fulfilled, or when the contract is refused, or when there is a breach of contract, what can be done when the contract is not fulfilled or when the contract is not actually complete? Then in such a case, some compensation can be given to make good the loss or to put the aggrieved party in a good position. Therefore, compensation in monetary terms is one of the principles that is applied for making good the loss to the injured party. Now, damages are of different types. Normally, we see classification of damages differently in different types of books. The classification that we have collected here shows that there are four kinds of damages. Number one, we have general damages and sometimes called as ordinary damages. Then we have special damages, Then we have vindictive damages or exemplary damages. Then we have nominal damages. So it is essential to note that all these four kinds of damages are called damages only. Now let us see one by one. General damages. General damages are those which arise naturally in the usual course of things for the breach of contract. These include damages which are the natural and probable consequences of the breach of contract, and general damages are such damages which the law presumes from the breach of contract. They are awarded with a view to compensate the injured party and not with a view to punish the party, who has committed a breach of contract. And normally general damages are usually assessed on the basis of actual loss suffered. If actual loss suffered is amounting to some amount, let us say for example 50,000 rupees, normal damages making to that value may be asked to pay for. Then in such a case, these type of damages are called ordinary damages or general damages. For example, a contractor agrees to sell 50 bags of wheat to be at certain price on a particular date, and he breaks his promise. Here B is entitled, or the other person is entitled, to receive from A by way of compensation the sum, if any, by which the price falls short and by which he might have obtained the 50 bags that ought to be given to him. Then in such a case, the value proportionate to the money or the value proportionate to the stock suffered will be the ordinary or general damages. Therefore, general damages are very simple in nature. After general damages, we have one more type of damages, that is special damages. Special damages are those which are the result of different or unusual circumstances affecting the party. These are the damages which the parties knew when they made the contract and are likely to arise from the breach of the contract. For example, if I want to reach one particular place and I hired a motor cab, I explained my purpose and the time about which I should reach the place, and I have given sufficient time for that transport owner to think and enter into the contract. After having examined all the things, entered into a contract to give a service, motor cab service to that place by that particular time. On that day of performance, if it does not do that and I don't reach the particular place by that time, I may suffer some loss. I may miss my examination. I may miss one of the auction sale where I was intending to attend, or I may miss one of the meeting, or I may miss one of the contract, and so on. So in such a case, the damages that are recovered or the damages that are claimed here are not ordinary damages but special damages which were already explained or which was already into the knowledge of both the parties while making the contract. Similarly, if the notice of special circumstances involved in a contract is known to the parties, then special damages will be claimed in case of breach of a contract. And however, it is important to note that special damages are exceptional damages and do not follow the course of ordinary damages. Let us take one more example. A builder agreed to construct one house for a person who was intending to let out that house on rent for 20,000 rupees per month, let us assume. By seeing the performance of the builder and anticipating the date of completion, as per the agreement or as per the contract made by the builder and the owner entered into one more rent agreement with one tenant to hand over the building on January 1st. Now, the house was supposed to be handed over in the month of December, but due to some reason, due to poor quality of construction, the entire structure got disturbed and some portion of the building fell, and there was a need to reconstruct the house once again due to the low quality or due to some other reason, which was due to the builder. Now here the owner not only suffers from the cost of reconstruction of the house, but also he will forego the rent that was supposed to be received after the handing over of the building, that is after January 1st. Then in such case, the damages which are claimed or which are demanded are not general or ordinary damages but special damages. Therefore, special damages are special in nature, which derive from unusual circumstances. Now we have one more damages, that is called vindictive damages. Vindictive damages are damages that are imposed on the party not in order to make compensation to the aggrieved party, but in order to punish the wrongdoer in the contract. These type of damages are special damages that are imposed on the person, and the main reason here is to punish the wrongdoer. Generally, vindictive damages are not awarded for breach of contract, but as a rule awarded in actions on tort. But there are two exceptions here to this rule, namely breach of a contract to marry and breach of a contract by a banker having sufficient funds of the customer at the disposal to honor his check. These two are exemptions. One is breach of contract to marry, and the second one is breach of non-payment or breach of payment by a banker even though having sufficient funds in the account. Therefore, except these two, if there is some breach of contract by one party, then the damages that are imposed or the damages that are being collected are vindictive or exemplary damages but not normal damages. Therefore, vindictive damages are different from general damages, and vindictive damages are different from special damages. And normally, vindictive damages are awarded in order to punish the wrongdoer and not primarily to have some compensation to the aggrieved or injured party. Then we have one more type of damages, that is called nominal damages. Nominal damages are awarded to the injured party where the damage of a short but not substantial nature is to be reckoned. The damages being nominal in nature and the injured party has been examined and the damages have been recorded. Where the breach is due to technical and injured party has no intention of performing his part of the contract. So the first condition is the breach is technical and not willful. And second one, where the injured party has not suffered any actual damages or fails to prove that he has suffered some damages. This is one more situation where the injured party has not suffered any actual damage, but when demanded or when asked to do so, he is not in a position to prove that he has suffered some damages. Therefore, it is important to see whether the injured party has faced any loss originally. If he has not faced any loss originally, then he cannot prove that he has suffered some loss. And where, though damage has been caused, it was more due to fault of the injured party than that of defendant. It may happen in some cases where the loss that has been occurred or the loss that has been faced is more due to the fault of the injured party but not due to the role of the defendant. Therefore, in this case, what happens is some fault or some burden is put on the injured party also. Therefore, the conditions which fulfill all these things will get an award of nominal damages but not any other kind of damages like general damages, special damages, or vindictive damages. Let us take one example here. Let us take Mr. A contracted to purchase a bike from a dealer, but he failed to purchase the bike. However, the demand for the bike far exceeded the supply, and the bike dealer could sell the bike agreed to be purchased without loss or profit. Then the dealer is entitled only to nominal damages. Here it is important to note that when opportunity was given to Mr. A to purchase a bike from a dealer, he failed to purchase the bike. Therefore, the fault is on injured party also. There is some fault on his side also because he did not respond or he did not buy the bike in the given time. In such a case, what will happen when there is a good demand for that bike? Sometimes it happens that demand will outstrip the supply. Demand will be more than the supply, and there will be shortage in the stock that has been demanded or that is available for the release to the bookings or release to the customers. Then, in such a case, the dealer is entitled only for nominal damages but not for the special or vindicative or any other type of damages. Therefore, it is important to note that damages are of four kinds, and those four kinds are general damages wherein the loss is very simple and it is ordinary in nature, and special damages wherein the special circumstances which were already known to both the parties to the contract or to all the parties to the contract which were agreed even at the time of making the contract, and in case of some breach of contract here, the damages that are awarded on the party are special damages but not nominal or normal damages. Then one more damages that we discussed here is vindictive or exemplary damages, which are awarded with a view to punish the wrongdoer and not the primarily with an idea of awarding compensation to the aggrieved or injured party. And the conduct of the defendant cannot be adequately punished only by awarding a proportionate financial loss actually suffered, but also some exemplary damages which are supposed to be awarded on him. It should be sufficiently exemplary or vindicative because of his wrong act, because of his wrong doing. The injured party suffered a great loss. Generally, vindictive damages are not awarded for breach of contract, but as a rule, they are awarded on the actions that are involved in the tort. Therefore, vindictive damages or exemplary damages are special in nature, which are awarded in order to punish the wrongdoer. Punish the wrongdoer here. And the damages which are very nominal are awarded where the injured party has sustained damage of a short but not of a substantial nature to be reckoned of are called nominal damages. And these type of damages are awarded where the breach is technical and the injured party has no intention of performing his part of the contract. And The injured party has not suffered any actual damage and fails to prove that he has suffered some damage. And though the damage has been caused, it was more due to the fault of the injured party but not on the defendant. Thank you.